Am I trying too hard with these? I hope not. Am I the only one that feels like artist is kind of like a special term? Like I do struggle to think of myself as an artist. I do really enjoy it. I think it's fun. I guess I can say that I'm better at it than the average person, but like I don't know, I just feel wildly unqualified. Like look at this drawing. You know what this is? No, stupid. It's a drawing. Yeah, it's a mug. It's a bad drawing of a mug. This is what I would show for 5 years of this shit. I feel terribly insecure about it. Anyway, I'm gonna tell you about my like art issues mainly for this video. I'm a bit of a perfectionist. Look at this, right? Simple drawing. It's just 2 characters, just 5 colors. Looks like a bunch of stickers. You wanna know how long it took me? 5 months. Enough? You wanna know what I spent half of my time doing? I would tweak every single thing to the pixel. I had to make sure it was just right. A lot of comparison, a lot of tweaking, a lot of this line, this other line. And I would do this with every single project, just artificially padding out the project like way longer than it should be, way longer than it needed to take. Add that to my ambitious ass, attempting to do stuff I actually was unqualified for, and it would result in a lot of repetition, a lot of fatigue, obviously a lot of frustration too. Especially like it got really bad in like the worst of cases. I'd wonder why it would take me 2 weeks enough to finish a drawing when I saw these other artists doing way more complicated stuff way faster. I mean, I know like comparison stole my life savings or fucking whatever, but it's just something that really bothered me. I mean, I would think 2 weeks, you know, it's fine. It's not like a massive amount of time. It's not a big deal. I am a pretty slow person in general. I really like to take my time with things. I thought it was fine. It didn't bother me that much. I could live with it. Well, that's the mindset I had until I got to this one. To go this little Persona 5 drawing, this or otherwise known as a piece of shit. It is my most recent-ish kind of technicalities drawing, but I'm actually talking about it because this was the drawing that broke the camel's back. It is the one drawing that I wholeheartedly, sincerely hate. I have had other projects take a few months, usually 2, 3, intentionally or otherwise. One specific piece comes to drawing, specific drawing, this little GTA drawing that also took about 5 months on off. I mean, there was also a month I kind of didn't work on it. I was just being lazy. And you can see it's more detailed, actually has more colors, it has a little bit more going on. It's doesn't look like a bunch of fucking stickers. And as, to be fair, less frustrating, more lazy as the process was, I still really like it. But I want to compare these two, right? Take this one, for example, I don't know which one's gonna, whatever. You'll know. But this one's like, he's chilling. He's chilling. It's pretty simple. Arms down, his arms hidden, so I won't have to do any foreshortening, foreshadowing. He's chilling. It's pretty simple. It's a pretty simple pose. And you have here 2 characters. One of them has very funny proportions and their limbs are all over the fucking place. I am not terribly good at foreshortening. I definitely wasn't at the time. And I thought I was. I thought I could do it, but no, I was out of my depth. I didn't realize it. So what I actually ended up happening, I tried tweaking it over and over until it looked about right, which was very easy to fall into trying to get it perfect. It's basically the same process. Like I just bashed my head against the wall, like band-aiding it until I got it right. This stupid drawing nearly killed my passion for it. I was so determined to get it perfect. It got to a point where I was working on it every single day for the whole day until like 3 a.m. I was miserable working on it. It was so annoying. And by the tail end of it, I was just angry. I was just so angry. I'd wonder if I was a bad artist. I wonder if maybe I just didn't have it. And I don't remember how long I kept that up, but by the time I was finished with it, I was so underwhelmed by the final drawing. You know, all the work, all the time I put into it for this garbo. I didn't want anything to do with it. I didn't stop to think how I could have done better. And I just wanted to get away from it as fast as possible. I didn't stop to look back on the process, on the journey. Something that I kind of like to do. I want to move on to the next thing. I was happy it was done. I thought I was happy with it, happy enough with it. But like, I do remember, I didn't want to admit it at the time, but I felt subconsciously worse and worse as an artist as time went on. I figured maybe moving on to the next thing, the next drawing would fix that. It would have really sucked if I'd like followed up with a similar process. It would have really sucked. 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 No, I did realize I was making the same mistake about halfway through. That does mean like 2 months and a half in. I checked. And you know what really sucks? It was meant to be a reset. Again, this is just how I did things. This was the process. Every project more complicated than I thought. I had bite off more than I could chew. And I never stuck to one thing. I never tried to practice one thing enough that I could do it fast enough, that I could understand it properly, that I could fix things properly and effectively. So I thought, okay, scratch the detail. I'm gonna do flat colors. I'm gonna do simple line art. I'm gonna do simple characters to style it way back. That wasn't the issue. I can agree I had the right idea. Trying to narrow my vision and trying to master a few things, trying to reduce my scope, which I'm still struggling with. I was actually working on like some Spotify covers for my playlists. I'm still working on them. I paused them for this video because I thought it took priority, and it's been like weeks. I was so sure it was gonna take like 2 days. Anyway, yeah, reset. I had the wrong fundamentals in mind. I was here worrying about colors and details, assuming with full confidence that I could do like 50 perspectives. And I know I'm talking a lot like about like the fundamentals, about the practice, the actual learning things, not so much perfectionism, but to me, that's my main issue because it kept me away from that in the first place, because it blinded me to my process. I would assume I understand things just on the first go, that I could go from drawing a tiny box to an entire city block. All those tweaks and nudging and pixeling and lining and whatever, I would all chalk it up to top touch-ups. Just that extra push that it needs to look right enough. So it ended up being a case where every hour that I spent with these touch-ups, that was an hour spent that I did not actually spend on making progress on the drawing. That was an hour that I was not spending practicing, actually studying. Like the whole process was just, there was some improvement, some very slow, very scattered improvement, just played by compensation rather than any actual steady, reasonable improvement. I realized that. I stopped the aforementioned drawing, the drawing that shall not be named. I decided I'm gonna start over. I'm gonna go back to basics. I'm gonna practice my fundamentals and I'm gonna mean it. But I moved, throwing about a lot of personal projects, different, not drawing, not art related, and a lot of procrastination. So I'm here now, and I basically haven't arted anything for a year. Not practice, not sketches. That's a lie. I'm actually lying. I'm literally lying. Not enough to matter. And so I'm actually kind of feeling a little behind, very behind, and a little scared that something like this could happen again. But I don't want to focus on bad bits. So some good to come out of it. I guess the silver lining would be that it gave me the time. It gave me some time to reflect on it. I thought about it every once in a while, thinking I want to get back to it, or thinking where I was standing. And it gave me time to muddle all the sour memories that came from this piece of shit that I hate. So now I can come back to it a little more optimistically, a little more enthusiastically. And you know what? It was actually kind of timed perfectly. Just as I was thinking about properly getting back into things, into drawing, into practicing, I got some videos recommended to me about this kind of thing. It started with a Tirzu video about YouTube advice, which I don't really care about. I think I've mentioned that before. And one of the segments was about how you actually kind of want your videos 80% of the way done, right? Because that extra 20% is not really worth it. But what really stood out to me was during the segment, within the segment, there was a scrolling through a feed of like art with the phrase, it was all about trying to get it out of the way first, trying to get it out there first, and then coming back to perfect it. And it really spoke to what I'm dealing with right now. So I thought that was very topical. Then it was a video from this pretty lady, Pentaboy. That's her fucking face. And it was about just trying to get your shit out there. That is a little analogy she used. And when I went to check the comments, sure enough, there it was. Incomplete coincidence. Fallout Season 2 was out, and in one of the episodes, you have one of the guys say how perfect is actually the enemy of good, and I thought that was very interesting. This thing that is completely separate from any algorithm, any spying of my personal information, how it was speaking to my same issue just from a completely different place. Having it all those signs back to back really inspired me to try again before being ready, fully ready, or once a little scared or a little worried. I did also get on top of that a video about this pink post-it note lady around here somewhere, put it, whatever. About that actually same thing, which I thought also was a nice finishing touch to this whole like signs of fate, whatever the fuck thing. So here I am now, you know, with some subtle shame and some subtle worry and some subtle what did I write? Jealousy. Why did I write that? With also hope and excitement. There you go. I'm getting back to things. I'm not gonna be focusing on practicing. I'm not gonna pick up exactly where I left off. I'm itching to work on things, you know. Also the time that I've spent thinking back on things over this year. I've also had some ideas come up that I'm way more interested in getting out there, which at the end of the day I think is like the main thing. And you know what? If it's bad, that's okay. We fail, we get back up. At least I will have had things put out there. That's the point. And at least I'll have had fun. I'll stick to what I don't. I'll be careful with what I don't. But there will be some that I don't know, and I'll brush up on it. I will practice it. I do still have to challenge myself. I don't want to play it so safe that I don't improve for different reasons. I will not vow that I won't get stuck, but I will try. That's the whole point. No perfection, no promises, just an honest to goodness attempt. But I will try to not get stuck. I will try to Frankenstein something out of something I don't know, or try to sculpt something like perfect out of what I do know. Cause yeah, also who cares? Who cares? Nobody's gonna look at a pouch and think, yeah, that was a good idea. It was a good move, moving that button a pixel to the top, or who cares? Nobody fucking cares. First and foremost, the art is for me. I'm doing it for myself. Not even I care. There's like a couple times maybe where I was like, okay, that pixel was right. Cause I'm granular like that. I am slow and I like to be thorough. I am a perfectionist for a reason, but I kept doing it. It annoyed me. More often than not, it would annoy me. I don't know why I kept doing it. Once I've gotten a little more stuff out there, once I'm a little more ready, when I'm in the right headspace, I think I'm not so distracted by all these ideas that I really want to do. I'm a little more comfortable concentrating, putting some more focus on something a little more, I don't know, disciplinary, discipline, big words. Once that's all done and dusted, I'll get back to practicing. I'll get back to studying. I wish I could say that I'm starting where I left off. I think that'd be a little more inspirational, but the truth of it is, I just want to create, and that's a good thing. But when I do, hopefully I can prove better, more good and faster than I have in these last 5 years. I am deathly afraid that I might not. But yeah, that's for later. For now, I'm gonna take pen to tablet and find the fun in it again. So I started by drawing some gestures to brush up on my anatomy as a little warm-up for this drawing. You know, I said in my last video that I had like a terrible scripting voice. Yeah, you're about to hear it. I really thought I was talking normally, but now that I've been editing, clearly it sounds a little off, so I am very, very, very sorry for that. It is a super, super important thing that I totally did every day working on this piece. I spent a few minutes on each. You'll see them in a bit. I know gestures are meant to be quick and dirty, but this is just how I've always done them. I don't know, maybe I'm afraid to set a time limit. I think I would appreciate some advice. Anyway, what I was choosing to draw here for my big comeback, Hornet Silkworm from the hit game series Yakuza. I did a redesign of the knight back in way back in 2023, and I wanted to follow up with Hornet and a few other characters, and then the rest of bullshit came up. It really goes to show how which I kind of mismanaged shit, that I'm only able to get back to it just now. I think things kind of worked out alright though. While drawing, I realized that I was basically doing a sequel to that night drawing, which distinctly stands out in my mind as one of the few projects that I did that actually went like entirely smoothly. But even if it was unintentional, I think it was a really good call to come back to something that I was like way more familiar with. So let me tell you about how it went. I wrote a journal. I'm only gonna go over the big stuff instead of like choices and specific details for the drawing. But I did do a speed paint and everything, so I'm down to do a commentary. So I don't know, let me know, I guess, whatever. Okay, so the first thing that stood out to me was confidence. I was more confident. I decided Hornet here was gonna be 9 heads, and obviously she's female, so she has proportions that I'm not super familiar with, but I still went for it. I didn't worry about exact ratios or proportions or distances or anything. I went more based on vibes, or just kind of what felt right from what I understood, and it was very nice not having to deal with that, not having to stop dead in my tracks like I was so used to. Also, I had some introspections over the year that I do think kind of helped, but I didn't realize how much different things would be, how much more strongly I would feel in the actual moment of drawing. I thought it was really nice to be something to get to realize so early on, and I do think that is the most important sentiment. I ended up having a few moments of doubt later on, which did lead me to get stuck. And it was interesting to be able to see the direct effects back to back like that. And I will share some of those doubts that I had a little later on. But all around, things worked out pretty smoothly. I wrote down, and I still like very much agree with it, I felt like I'd been cured from something. I did get this little, not issue, but like arguably a waste of time. So I drew all the details for Hornet's body, which is not something you want to do. You want to avoid detail that won't be visible, because it just adds unnecessary time and work to the piece. I just did it because I was curious how I would do her anatomy, like a bug person anatomy. It's also how I approach the night. But it is something that came up way more importantly, or way more strongly later. So I knew I wanted to do a color kind of like yours, but besides that, I had no idea. So I ended up switching to a much dirtier kind of sketching. I didn't want to dedicate time to something that I was not sure would work out. And that's what ended up happening with the color. At some point, I stopped liking it, so I removed it. And all the time that I spent on it, it wasn't much. But it was wasted. And doubly so, because I added it back. I had to draw it twice. It was very eye-opening seeing that idea, little like hypothetical, become real like that. So it's very, very important to thumbnail and concept, and only to commit when you're not 100% sure. Not anymore, we're not doing that anymore, but like 89% sure. And I can't comfortably say that I ever felt or did that in any of my older projects. I wrote down that I don't remember ever doing that kind of dirty sketching for the persona drawing. Like, just because the designs were already figured out for me, it didn't mean I could just skip the sketching. I remember Arsene's leg was especially problematic. All the nudging and tweaking and perfecting that I did was on a finished leg. Well, not the finished leg, just like the cylinder, the skeleton bit of the leg. Now, when and how often you want to dirty sketch, I guess, kind of depends on the case to case to the drawing. For example, Hornet's pose in this drawing is a little more relaxed, and she's upright. It's a lot more doable. I was very, very comfortable just kind of sending it. But again, I was so out of depth with the foreshortening on the persona drawing, and I do think a little concepting would have gone a long way. Then it was while journaling for that day when I had the realization, which I already spoiled. So when I was going to this drawing, I kind of had this idea that I sucked. I don't think I ever thought of myself as a bad artist, but like with all the shitty projects, I guess I just went in wary of the usual challenges that might come up. But as they came up, working on like Hornet's like gesture and skeleton and body parts, and also the clothes folds after this day, I found them kind of easy. I thought like maybe I'd improved out of nowhere, and I was very confused because I never made any time to practice during my hiatus. I wrote down that I guess I had it in me all this time, that I was just focused on the trivial details, but I kind of started to grow suspicious. So just when I was wondering if I was giving myself too much credit, it hit me. This was a sequel to the night drawing. I couldn't believe it took me until day 6 to notice. I thought about other projects, the way I did them, the way I got stuck, the way I didn't make time to practice, and the way I didn't really practice when I did. I hadn't actually improved. I was at the same skill level I was when I'd stopped. I'd only just come back to one of the easier, more chill processes that I'd done. It was all already familiar to me. And I had found improve for the point of my video. Because like, keep in mind, this was 2023. I am at the same skill level I was when I finished that night drawing, because of all the not just the year that I didn't draw, but also that I was drawing. It very much felt like I was in that same spot, despite everything that I came after when I was drawing. But the thing is, I kind of did improve. Like the challenges I mentioned that I said they felt easier. I felt like I actually understood them. I felt like I was actually thinking about the fundamentals instead of pretending to like I might have in the past. Things just kind of like tangibly clicked in my brain. I think maybe by letting myself not stick to perfection, I allowed myself to think of things like past just the surface level look of them. I don't know if that makes sense. I would love some opinions or expertise or something or whatever, because I'm not entirely convinced that confidence and time away alone could make such an impact. It's funny though how I got better, but I also kind of didn't. The Hornet drawing ended up taking about the same time as the night drawing did, which is probably the biggest tell that I am in fact at the same skill level. I still heavily relied on references and iteration, working on stuff like the body. I can just freehand the figure, that doesn't come to me naturally. But on the other hand, she has way more clothes and way more folds and way more details and like different proportions. And I also did 2 backgrounds. So for all that to still take about the same time, I would like to think that there has been some improvement. Out of where, I don't know, but I'll take it. And then on day 10, things kind of sucked. I had a pretty bad, especially lonely day, and I was in a pretty bad mood. That day I finished the sketch, so I was able to move on to the line art, and I felt kind of bad doing it. I wrote down I wasn't as excited to create, maybe because I was running through lines that I already drawn before, and maybe it was all my emotions that day, but something about it felt like closure. All the concepting and sketching and creativing was mostly done. Now it was just lines and colors. Maybe all the time I spent on sketching all the details brought me some comfort, and maybe it was time poorly, just starting to wrap things up on a bad day. Maybe I wasn't ready to let go. Maybe I had too much baggage. But I also saw some good in it. Like I said, things have been pretty easy and straightforward for this piece. If every step was a challenge, things would have been an unfortunately familiar uphill battle. Now, of course, challenge is good, but a reminder that the goal for now is just to find the fun in it again. And having everything work out as well as it did, I think it was welcome. And probably another reason why I felt funny is because I was so used to projects taking way longer. Fortunately, the next day looked a little brighter. I started thinking forward about what I was gonna do after. More painterly stuff, more Hollow Knight characters. I still have like hella ideas. It's not all I wanna do. There is a balance, but something about these charming little characters that does appeal to me. Maybe I come back to them if I wanted something a little safer to draw. If I wanted to draw something less challenging and just draw without too much worry. I would love to do more. More than anything, I think it's indicative of how much fun this was. I wrote down, if there's a positive and hopeful takeaway from this whole journey, is that regardless of how long I play it safe or how long I draw until I get back to practicing, it feels really nice to be back. I had gotten that big inspired feeling that I had not felt in a while, and it is one that I dearly missed. Day 12 meant the 2-week-ish mark, and that started seeping in again. I had been seeing more art around this time, on Instagram, on Reddit, on YouTube, just wherever. I don't know why it's so magnetic, and I don't know how to stop. But I again felt my life savings being stolen. Why is it taking me 2 weeks to draw something so simple, while all these other artists can do way more, way faster? I would love to hear some voices. I know I'm slow, I've realized now, and there was no way I wasn't gonna be. I am at the same skill level, but I still feel pretty inadequate. And my head got no clearer. I was particularly busy around this time, so this was day 12 working on the piece, not day 12 in general, and I started worrying about a lack of time, about not having that time to practice that I wanted. I also lied earlier,
because I did not do gesture drawing every day, and it is super important. I worried about how little time I might have for that. If I don't have time for the quickest and dirtiest type of drawing, how can I have time for anything else? And I've been thinking about the industry lately too, with its abuse and AI and layoffs. It's a bad business to be in right now, but I want to be a part of a team so bad to create a piece of art that's larger than myself and that way more people can appreciate. How can I hope to make it work? I always said I would focus on skills before career, and I still feel that way, but the thought still crosses my mind. There's something, I guess, ironic about overcoming this hurdle that was perfectionism, only to be presented by such a leviathan. And the worst part is, it's well outside my control. How do people deal with that? I would love to hear some voices here too. And then day 13, I finished. With an asterisk, it took like an extra day, but I didn't feel like logging in. But yeah, I didn't write anything big, introspective, just details. I corrected some stuff, I colored some backgrounds, and I just had to come back to it with fresher eyes to make sure that it was finished. Again, it wasn't, but I just wasn't in the mood for introspection. And you know what? I didn't need to. By design, I wanted to adapt this journal first before the big conclusion. So,
with the drawing done, speedbin edited, and pseudo script draft bullet points written and recorded, hello. Let's wrap this thing up. Okay, so let me hit you with some stats first. Hours-wise, Hornet took about just a little short of 33 hours. I worked on her for 13, 14 days. But the time that I spent for her from start to finish was 24 days. Doesn't really seem right to me. I'm not entirely sure I'm counting right, but let's go with it. Now I don't have the stats for the night, but going from the file creation to the day that I posted it, about 18 days. I also want to point out that I did work on both of these from mid-March to early April. So it's another parallel between the two drawings. It's really interesting how well this Hornet drawing lended itself to the comeback. So comparing both of the times, I worked on Hornet for a bit less. As a more detailed drawing and like everything already mentioned, all that went into it, and in the context of this comeback, I'm very proud of that fact, and I'm very happy with how it turned out. However, I did finish her later because, like I said, I have been busier and I just don't really have that much time anymore. Halfway through it, looked like maybe I would finish it, but that didn't end up happening. I don't really feel bad about it, and it is maybe a little annoying, but you know, that's life. I think more than anything, it just kind of stirs up doubt in me about the kind of time I'm gonna have, or that I want to have for like future projects or something. And it's also pretty unsatisfying having that contradiction between times. Like I worked on it less, but I finished it later. It almost smells like procrastination, but I mean, I wish it was. I wish it was. I also want to talk about something else. A little detour. I didn't think I was going to talk about this, but I did end up having a few thoughts. I want to talk about how my post went. So at first I was like weirdly nervous. I didn't know if anyone was going to see it or if anyone was going to care about it. I am reminded of like a Hank Green video, which you've already seen, assuming I haven't forgotten to edit it in. And I realized it actually does kind of take courage to put stuff out. It got me thinking about like bad movies or bad games and just like how people would just rip them apart. And it doesn't mean like critique isn't like necessary or warranted, just also a completely different discussion. But it got me thinking about the other parts of the process, just the stuff that goes beyond like directly working on it. I'm a person that adores art. I try to appreciate all the forms and all the effort that goes into it. I think being exposed to that kind of anxiety or like, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, I think does further my appreciation for things.
It's pretty weird though. I don't think that I've ever felt that way about any of my other drawings or like posting videos. Maybe I felt this way because I hadn't posted anything in like years. Yeah, I don't know. It's a little weird.
But my nerves were quelled pretty quickly. So, well, the Instagram post bombed, which I was pretty surprised by. Literally got zero attention on the day I posted it. I posted it on Blue Sky because fucking Twitter fucked me over in my asshole. And it had a couple people like it. I also showed it to my friend who is also a Hornet fan. And he really liked it. We talked about it for a bit and he gave me some ideas for like some other characters I'm just very glad that he was receptive to it. But where I got the most attention was on Reddit, on the Hornet subreddit. It is currently sitting at 3.7 thousand updates, which is way more than the 800 that my original night post got. The Persona 5 drawing, I didn't have anyone to share it with other than Reddit, and then like it did way worse. And you know how I said like it was. I remember being so underwhelmed when I finished it. Having that post get as little attention as it did, I think all but confirmed to me that it was, in fact, the lowest point in my like art as a hobby career. And I don't mean to say that like the internet points determine the value or the quality of the piece. That's fortunately something I can say I've never really associated like my art with that kind of stuff, because I do know like a lot of people do struggle with it. But I want to compare it to this post. So a lot of people actually showed up in the comments to voice their thoughts, and every single one of them had nice things to say. So to have that happen on a comeback piece like this, it felt very triumphant, and it touched me a lot too. Because also considering my loneliness and all the especially bad days that I had throughout, to be seen like that and to have like all the people appreciate what I'd done, what I'd made, it was so much more comforting than like a platitude like, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. And I'm incredibly grateful that so many people were receptive to it. So if I haven't made it clear already, I'm very happy how this comeback has worked out. I think it's revitalized my passion for art and my passion to create and to conjure new ideas. I got more projects in mind that I'm grateful to say that I'm very excited to get to. I'm actually already working on a painting for a new profile picture for the channel of the picture that I currently have. We'll put it here for posterity for future reference. I hope that I can have it out by the time the video's out, or like pretty soon after. And a portrait is something that I was like, I've been afraid to do for the longest time. I was always so worried that like maybe things would look bad or something. Clearly I've been overcompensating, but I can say that I'm not afraid anymore. I wanted to do something a little more challenging than Hornet, and what do you know? All that fear and that insecurity and all that perfection. I was so fucking blind. It is already turning out way better than I could have expected. But some thoughts about practice have kind of crossed my mind. A lot of technique or skill still doesn't come to me naturally. I still probably couldn't draw this goddamn mug properly. I still feel pretty inadequate. It feels a little weird having these two pieces work out as well as they have. But I need to remember that the challenge here, the lesson here, is not any technique or skill, but just learning confidence. And I think I definitely have. I really used to think that I had a reasonable approach. But as I've been thinking back on things for this video, I have come to realize how afraid and insecure I really was. And like how much pressure I used to put on myself. And now I feel such a weight off of my shoulders. I look at what I've made and I'm overcome with inspiration and hope. And I find some comfort in it. Because if you allow me to pity farm for a moment, I'm thinking about a line in the description of my last video. And I'm heartbroken that I've only got myself to celebrate this with. Because here's the thing, I feel very emotional about this. And I really want to hammer home how much this victory means to me. And I'm hoping that maybe I'll get the chance to share that with the people watching this video. Hopefully some fellow artists. But yeah, that's my piece. That's my long ass million billion year long piece. I'm very sorry. I'm feeling relieved to have found the passion again in one of my favorite things. I'm feeling very excited to see more of my ideas realized. I'm feeling very grateful that I can again participate in one of humanity's, I don't know, best traits or whatever. And I'm feeling hopeful, not just about my art, but my other creative outlets. and about the comfort that they might bring me. Lord knows I need some, as we all need some.